So it's time to get my double Extreme on with the X99 ASRock Extreme 6 with USB 3.1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tech Yes City. This is Brian coming back to you guys today with yet another ASRock X99 motherboard review. However, this time it has USB 3.1. So last year you guys probably know that I reviewed the ASRock Extreme 6 and it was pretty much the answer to all my problems on the X99 line. I was having a lot of problems with the previous boards that I used, the MSI SLI Plus, also as well as the Gigabyte UD4. And when ASRock probably saw this, they said, hey, we're confident in our product, we'll send you over something that works. And when I got it in, it worked flawlessly. And since then, I think they've noticed that I really do expose all the details about a motherboard. And if there's something that I don't like, I will let you guys know. And so today with the X99 ASRock Extreme 6 with USB 3.1, I'm glad to say that it's yet another solid board from ASRock on the X99 line. So we'll quickly go over today a quick flash review of the motherboard because I've already done a really in-depth review on the Extreme 6 and this motherboard doesn't differ that much. So if you wish to see that review, I'll put the link in the description below with a little photo there or up here, and you guys can check that out if you want to know every little minor detail. But I'll go over the things I like and some little things that I don't like, and then we'll move over to a quick look at the BIOS. We'll do a quick sound test for you guys, and then we'll move on to a conclusion as well as testing out some USB 3.1. So starting from top to bottom, you get a big chunky heatsink covering a 12-phase VRM, which has really good components on it. 12K niche concaps, 60 amp chokes, dual MOSFET design there. But not only that, the VRM stays cool. And this is with overclocks that go up to 1.3 volt. I still had no problems with this VRM, and the heatsink was cool to touch in a 25-degree controlled environment. So really good job with this VRM. I don't see you coming into any problems with everyday 24/7 overclocks on this motherboard. So looking at memory compatibility there, we've got 8 DIMMs, which supports up to 128 gigabytes of DDR4 memory. You can also tune this in the BIOS, very in-depth as well, so you can change individual voltages on the RAM and stuff like that, so that's a good thing. You've also got 2 USB 3 front outs there on the motherboard if you wish to connect that. Looking further down, you've got 10 SATA 3 ports there, as well as the SATA Express. So this is added in from the Extreme 6 Standard Edition. You've got the SATA Express port there as well, which will actually cancel out a SATA 3 port if you wish to use that. Now also, the first 6 ports are dedicated to being RAIDable, if that's a word, and then the last 4 ports, they're SATA 3, but they can't be put in RAID configurations. Now further down the board, you've got a power button and a reset button if you wish to put this on a bench, as well as you've got the Dr. Debug LED light there, which can help you if you're having problems, especially if you're overclocking and coming into problems, or if your parts are faulty, it'll read out codes, and possibly the motherboard's faulty from the factory, it'll let you know that. So you've got all your standard connectivity ports there, USB 2 front outs, Thunderbolt, front audio out there. You've also got a COM port there, as well as one thing I'll mention is the dual BIOS design, and it's very good because you can select between the 2 different BIOSes, A or B, and so if you're upgrading your BIOS, you can turn it to the other BIOS and then upgrade that and test if everything's working okay, and if it is, you can keep it on that BIOS, upgrade the previous BIOS, vice versa. It can save a lot of headaches in the future, because in the past I have had a BIOS brick and it has ruined the whole motherboard. So it's great that there's a dual BIOS design, though I do expect that on an X99 board. So looking at the middle of the board there, straight above the 3 PCIe 3 16-speed slots there, we've also got an auxiliary power in there, which will supply more power to the PCIe slots, especially if you're going with 3-way SLI or something like that. You've also got a fan port there, and in total you've got 6 fan headers on the board, which is great, and you can control them in the BIOS with the fantastic tuner. Just below that, you've got an M.2 SATA port there if you wish to use that. It is very fast. I do recommend it if you're going with a new SSD nowadays. You've also got 2 1-speed PCIe slots there, and also a PCI mini slot there. Now, one limitation about this board is that if you've got a 5820K, it won't support 3-way SLI. It will support 2-way, but it won't support 3-way. If you want to get 3-way SLI, you've got to step it up to a 5930K. Now, I'm not too sure about why this is happening, but I believe this is a thing implemented from Intel with recent BIOS updates. So just be careful of that and be mindful of that if you are getting this board. Now another thing as well is you got, besides that, the Purity Sound 2. Now I'll do a quick test and I'll talk about the audio, because I do think it's a big part of a motherboard, especially an X99 motherboard. You should be getting a good onboard audio solution. And now the Purity Sound 2, it is pretty much the best onboard audio solution I've tried. Not just with the audio out, but also the mic in, and as well as the line in. They're both really good. So if you're wanting to record things and use a preamp like I do, this is a great onboard audio solution. Let's quickly go over to the back of the board now. So looking from top to bottom at the back of the connectivities there, you also get an I/O shield included, which is black, which is good. But looking at this, you get a PS2 port, so you can plug in a PS2 mouse or keyboard. I personally use a PS2 keyboard myself, and you can boot that from the computer. So you can just press a key on your keyboard and you're good to go. Your computer's booted up. No need for a power button anymore. You've also got two USB 2 ports there. Looking further down, you've got the USB 3.1C connector, which is the reversible design. It's actually a little bit smaller than a USB 2 port as well. And that's give you future upgradability, as well as that 10 gigabits per second speeds, which is actually faster than SATA 3. So that's a good thing. You also got below that a SATA Express, or a eSATA port, sorry, and you've got two USB 3s connected to a Qualcomm Ethernet adapter below that, and then below that you've got the Intel i218V Ethernet connector, as well as two USB 3 ports there. Now below that you get the audio options, which supports 7.1 DDS sound, I believe. Also it supports analog 5.1 out, and you've got your line in and mic in there, which can run separate, which is what I actually utilize, and then you've got your audio out there. Also, it is important to note that the audio out on the rear sounds exactly the same as it does on the front, so I'd be using the audio out on the rear, as I think that's where the headphone amp goes to anyway. So some motherboards in the past, they only go to the front audio out, which is a bummer, because I like using my rear audio out, as I don't have a front audio out on my board as well. So anyway, that being said, let's move on now to a quick look at the BIOS, and then we will move on to the actual audio test, and then I'll quickly do a USB 3.1 test for you guys as well. So we'll take a quick look at the ASRock UEFI BIOS for the Extreme 6 3.1, and now it's very intricate, just like the other ASRock X99 boards I've reviewed. This one has a blue and black theme. It's got all these different options that any enthusiast would appreciate. You can even disable cores, disable hyperthreading if you want to. You can change all your RAM timings, even advanced RAM timings. You can also change the actual individual stick voltage, DIMM voltages themselves. So if you want this particular RAM to have more voltage, you can change that as opposed to another stick of RAM. So very good for overclocking. There's also the fantastic profiles there for tuning your fans manually from the actual onboard connectors there. So anyway, that's about it. Let's move on now to a sound test. So let's take a look at ASRock's onboard X99 Purity Sound 2. Now this time I'm recording it from the line in over my condenser mic, which is running through a preamp. I was originally going to record it on this Razer Car KS headset, but when I did, I found it had a lot of popping, and it would not give you a good idea of how good the motherboard itself is. So I decided to just test it on the condenser mic and just show you how good it is. And if you want to hear what the mic in sounds like over my V-Motor Pro, which is currently not in my studio at the moment, then just click on the Fatality review and you can hear what it sounds like there. Though for what it's worth, mic in and line in are really good. They virtually introduce no noise, especially the mic in when you got it at a volume level of 50 plus 20 dB. It's, with noise suppression off, which I don't like noise suppression. I try to have it off if I can. And so really good job on those two ports. The audio out as well, great volume levels there, great clarity. It's, the bass roll off is not as, it's like some of the best for an onboard audio solution. And so overall they've done it really well. There is one negative about the onboard audio, and this is pretty much with every onboard audio solution I've heard to date, is that there is a bit of crosstalk. It's not going to be as good as something like an Andes E07K, but I don't expect it to be. That's like a $100 DAC amp solution, dedicated DAC amp solution. I don't expect them to put that on a $250 motherboard. So anyway, that being said, it is better than, for instance, the Purity Sound 2 is better than Gigabyte's UD4 X99 amp up, for example. So really good job with their onboard audio solution. I like what they've done. But let's move on now to the USB 3.1 testing. Now that I did with this, I couldn't actually max the speeds on this. I don't have the gear here to actually properly max USB 3.1. So if you need USB 3.1, then you can definitely utilize it with this motherboard. Though what I did test was I did some real world tests. I copied a file from my USB SSD to my mainboard SATA 3 SSD, and it was like instantaneous. I was shocked. A 1.3 gig file was pretty much just snap it over. It was instantaneous. When I did do some benchmarks, I did edge out some slightly higher speeds on the USB 3.1 line over the SATA 3 line. So that was pretty good to see. I liked how I could actually benchmark that and get a little bit of extra speeds there. Though for what it's worth, if you need USB 3.1, it is on this board. You've got two USB 3.1A slots over that card, and you've also got a USB 3.1C there over the actual onboard port itself. So great connectivity there. And for me personally though, I can still utilize USB 3 perfectly fine. So if it's something you need, then if that's the deal breaker, then go for it. But anyway, that being said, let's move on now to a conclusion with this motherboard. So in conclusion, I can only say really good things about ASRock's X99 line boards. And now one thing I do want to correct out the way is that ASRock, there's this rumor on the internet that ASRock is a second tier manufacturer of motherboards. And with this X99 line that's come through here, I'm going to say that's definitely not the case. I'd say ASRock is a top tier motherboard manufacturer, and in my case, they were better than the other manufacturers' boards that I had come through here. They work perfectly, and not only that, run cool, really stable, fantastic onboard audio solution, really good NIC on board. I mean, there's not much more that I would want from a motherboard except some little cosmetic things, and I pointed that out, those white clips. I'd like to see them just color coded to the motherboard. That's the only negative that I can really point out from my own personal experience with this motherboard. Other than that, everything is rock solid on this motherboard. And in the past, I mean, ASRock have put out those cheaper motherboards, but nowadays they're a different company to Asus. They're putting out top quality motherboards, especially on this X99 line. And I'm looking forward to what they do with the Z107 line. And hopefully they can send me something in there and I'll get some Skylake testing for you done. But when it comes to components, features, and utility, ASRock get it right. That's their top priority with these motherboards. And that's what really makes me happy as a tech reviewer, is when the company gets the product right. Because, hey, I'm looking at my screen like 99.9% of the time. I'm hardly ever looking at my rig. So I don't care about cosmetics at the cost of utility and features. And so this board gets it right, where it just gets features and utility smack bang top priority. And that's what I would pay money for personally, and that's what I recommend people paying money for. When we compare that to the UD4, for example, there's fancy LEDs on board, terrible onboard audio solution in my opinion. Mic in has noise coming in, the line in has noise coming in, and then you've got crashing going on when you're trying to overclock your computer, even on stable overclocks. So it's good that they've got it right here, and that's what I really like. Big thumbs up to ASRock. Now the USB 3.1, that's the main feature that's added on here. So the pricing, I think it's about $300, around a bit below that, though you are getting USB 3.1 with the add-in card there. Two USB 3.1A slots. You're also getting that USB 3.1C put directly on the board. So you've got your options there for USB 3.1, and man, USB 3.1 is fast. It's faster than your SATA 3 ports that you're connecting your hard drives to. So it really is fast. When I stopped and scratched my head, I was like, hey, this is actually really fast. So good job in implementing that. You've also got the add-in card there. So if you don't use USB 3.1, you can probably just grab the card and sell it on eBay, whatnot. But if you don't need USB 3.1, there's also the standard Extreme 6 out there. There's also the Extreme 4, which would probably be my best value for money choice, because a lot of people wouldn't use the dual NIC, and a lot of people I imagine wouldn't even use 8 DIMMs of memory, so you might even want to step it down to an Extreme 3. But anyway, they've got all their pricing up there. They've actually got really good pricing in Australia as well for the Aussies. So that's something that I like that ASRock are doing, is they're giving good international pricing on their motherboards. So anyway, that's that, guys. I can't say enough good about this motherboard or the ASRock X99 line. If I was going on the X99 line from a fresh build, I'd be getting an ASRock motherboard. Simple as that. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. Please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, and you're probably like, what about ASUS boards and EVGA boards? I haven't tried them. And you know, ASUS and EVGA, they're welcome to send me a review sample, even if it's just for review, and I'll post it back to them. So there's my offer to you guys. In the meantime, I am gonna chill out and give you guys and work on another tech video for you guys. So if you want, you can check me out on social media. If you want to support the channel and keep it sponsor free, then you can check out my Patreon, as well as giving this video a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, then hit that subscription button, and I will check you out in another tech review very soon, or tech news. And peace out for now. Bye.